Jurors in Shayna Hubers' trial learned more about the night Ryan Poston was shot, and testimony took some unusual twists and turns today.
The victim was alive for all of the shots. So I believe the first 3 shots in and of themselves were very damaging, but he remained alive until the last shot was given.
It was a cold night on October 12, 2012, when 911 dispatchers answered the phone. The call was coming from a condo in Highland Heights, just a few minutes from downtown Cincinnati.
Campbell County 911.
Ma'am, I killed my boyfriend in self-defense.
Okay, where are you at?
I'm at 12 Meadow Lane, Highland Heights, Kentucky. 41076.
Is it Meadow, anything else, Meadow View or something?
No, 12 Meadow Lane, ma'am, I killed him in self-defense.
Okay. Tell me again what unit you're in. It's not showing in my computer.
The caller was 21-year-old Shayna Hubers, and she had just shot her on-off boyfriend, Ryan.
Hold on. What did you kill him with?
A loaded gun in the house. I laid it on the bookshelf. I'm standing about 10 feet from his dead body.
Okay, are you sure that he is dead?
He's dead, ma'am. He's completely dead.
Okay. And how long ago did you shoot him?
I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes, not even that long.
10 or 15 minutes ago?
Yeah.
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Shayna Hubers. Are they going to arrest me?
Ma'am, I don't know what they'll do. We're going to send him out. I'm going to stay online with you, okay?
I mean, I'm not a murderer, ma'am. I just killed him.
What happened exactly? What happened?
He beat me and tried to carry me out of the house, and I came back in to get my things, and he was right in front of me, and he reached down and grabbed the gun, and I grabbed it out of his hand and pulled the trigger.
Okay. And how old is he?
He's 29. He'll be 30 he would have been 30 on December the 30th.
All right, what's his name?
Ryan Poston. He's an attorney in Cincinnati.
So he slammed you into the couch, but you don't have any injuries?
I don't have any injuries. I was just very frightened. He's a lot bigger than me. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. I'm 5'8", 120. And he picked me up and was carrying me out of the house. And I said, let me get my things at least if we're going to break up. And he wouldn't let me get my things. And when I reached around to try to get my things, I can hear myself echoing in the background, ma'am.
It's just the phone system. The phone system has got a delay.
And he pushed me down from the door all the way to the couch. And when they come here, they'll see how far that is. He threw me across the room. And I was very startled. I was laying on the floor.
Okay.
Ma'am, and then because he was twitching and I knew he was going to die anyway, and he was making funny noises, I shot him a couple more times just to kill him because I knew he would have been.
I'm sorry, you said you shot him a couple more times after that?
Yeah.
How many times did you shoot him total?
I don't know.
Okay, because he was twitching and you knew he was going to die, so you shot him again?
Enough to make sure he was dead because he was twitching so bad and I wanted to lay there and do it.
So you shot him instead of calling 911?
For a small town that had been peaceful for many years, this event was truly surprising and astonishing.
Shayna Hubers was taken into the police station to give her version of events.
You want something to drink? You want some water? Do you smoke?
I will. I can.
Right, you can have a seat. I'll get you a cigarette too. Okay, I'll be with you in just a second. You're fine. What was his name?
The man that I killed. Ryan Carter Poston. I don't live with him.
Okay. Is that his address?
That's his place.
Okay, what's your address, sweetheart?
The victim, 29-year-old Ryan Poston, was discovered slumped on the floor, face down between a table and the radiator. Blood splattered the wall and table behind him. Shane had shot him 6 times at close range with his own gun. 29-year-old Ryan grew up in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, a dedicated family man deeply connected to his parents, Jay and Lisa. Despite their divorce when he was young, Ryan remained close to both, especially his father. His stepfather, Peter Carter, also became a significant figure in his life. Demonstrating his affection, Ryan even changed his middle name to Carter. Ryan, a diligent and driven individual, excelled academically, spending parts of his high school years in the Philippines and Switzerland before attending Indiana University. There, he triple majored in geography, history, and political science, always with the singular goal of becoming a lawyer. His father, Jay, recalled how Ryan lived and breathed his profession, bringing his work home daily. He was passionate about helping people, often taking on clients who couldn't afford to pay, treating their problems as his own. His dedication made every client feel like they were the only person in the world, with their concerns being his top priority. A friend described Ryan as a fierce lawyer, instantly commanding attention whenever he entered a room. However, outside his professional realm, he was notably quieter, shying away from confrontation. Quickly rising through the ranks, he became one of the youngest attorneys in the state to establish his own law firm, always driven, with aspirations of one day entering politics. In 2011, after an amicable breakup with his ex-girlfriend Lauren due to their hectic schedules, Ryan found himself intrigued by the Facebook profile of 19-year-old Shayna Hubers. Despite their separation, Lauren still believed Ryan was her true love and hoped for a future reconciliation. Ryan and Shayna shared mutual friends, including Ryan's cousin, which led him to initiate a conversation after liking several of her photos. By April 2011, Shayna had turned 20, and after months of online chatting, they finally met in person. Shayna, on a scholarship to study psychology at Kentucky University, and Ryan, nearly 100 miles away in his new condo, began a new chapter that would intertwine their fates in unexpected ways. Despite the distance and an almost 10-year age gap, their relationship developed at an astonishing pace. Shane didn't hesitate to meet Ryan's family shortly after they started dating, even spending important holidays with them. This wasn't a small step. Family opinions meant everything to Ryan. As for Shayna, her friends described her as captivating, intelligent, and utterly charming. From a young age, she stood out in programs for gifted students and always stole the spotlight in musical theater performances. Her talent and natural dramatic flair seemed destined for the stage. Moreover, Shayna graduated from university a few years ahead of her peers before moving on to pursue a master's degree. On paper, Ryan and Shayna appeared to be the perfect match. So, what exactly happened on that fateful night? At the police station, Shayna Hubers seemed unable to stop talking. She was informed of her rights and requested a lawyer, but continued speaking incessantly without one present. "You have the right to remain silent. I do want an attorney, okay? Then I can't ask you anything at all." Yet, Shayna didn't stay silent. She spoke to anyone willing to listen, as if unable to hold back from revealing something.
I was so out of it. I was like, "Is this not the thing for killing? And can you come to the scene?" I was raised really Christian, and murder is a sin. And I wasn't doing anything that was mean. I was like begging him to stay in the relationship and be with me because I knew that we once really loved each other. Ryan had told me that he loved me and wanted to be with me.
From the very beginning, Shayna insisted that it was an abusive relationship. She claimed Ryan was always cruel, cold, and aggressive, constantly criticizing her appearance. "You need plastic surgery. You need to lose weight." But now, Shayna alleged that he had also become physically abusive. She said everything had escalated too far that night, forcing her to do what she had to in order to protect herself.
I knew he was violent. I knew he was crazy. He was screaming at me, telling me I was hillbilly, that he hates me. He was throwing me around the room, like picking me up and like had my face and stuff. Pulled me by the ponytail of my hair. I had my head banged and do a few different things tonight. Picking me up and throwing me against the bookshelf and calling me a hillbilly. On me his jokes before. And I shot him in self-defense because he's done stuff before where I've hit my head on the headboard and could have died.
Shayna recounted that, on that night, he had grabbed her and thrown her against the walls in a fit of rage. Just when she thought things had calmed down and Ryan had settled back at the table, everything suddenly escalated from 0 to 100 in an instant.
Stuff he was saying to me was so abusive while he was throwing me around the room. I think in the midst of that, my love turned to hate, and I remember screaming, reaching up to grab the shirt. You out there, you mocked my family, out there.
So where had the gun come from? Ryan had a license for his guns and had several of them around his apartment. There was always one in reach, she said.
The guns, he keeps loaded guns in the house. Has picked up a gun, pointed at my face as a joke. What would you do if part of me wanted to get my keys and get in the car and leave? Because I knew my word against his and he's dead. You know, how is anyone else to know that it's self-defense? He had guns laying on the table, and I just picked up the gun, and in the middle of him doing something with his arm or saying something crazy, shot him. I knew he was going to die or have a completely deformed face. He's very vain and wants to get a nose job. Just that kind of person. And I shot him right here. I gave him his nose job. He wanted. It was a handgun that I used. The gun was this big. I picked it up off the table. I did have to release the spook. I did. I remember it now. I can see it. And he had his hand on the table, and he wasn't completely standing up. He was like this. He was sitting. He was enough that when I went like this, literally. That's when I knew he was dead, or close to it, and twitching. I walked around the table. And I think that's when I shot him in the head. I shot him probably 6 times. Shot him in the head. He fell onto the ground. He was like laying like this. His glasses were still on. He was twitching some more. I shot him a couple more times just to make sure he was dead, because I didn't want to watch him die.
As the police went in and out of the interrogation room, Shayna could be seen singing Amazing Grace and dancing around.
How sweet. I'll be right back. Thank you.
Totally detached from everything, unraveling as the officers came and went, twirling around and snapping her fingers, singing, I killed him, I killed him. I did it, yes, I did it.
Yes, I did. I can't believe I did that.
The only thing she seemed concerned about was whether she would be allowed to take a shower and keep her phone if she went to jail.
If you go to jail, are you allowed to keep your phone? If I had to go to jail, can you shower there? Or do you just get really dirty? You have very pretty teeth. Did you have orthodontia? If I don't get any serious consequences, then I could really be happy just having a career and maybe not even ever getting married. Because this is very traumatic, you know. I don't know if anyone will ever want to marry me if they know that I killed my boyfriend himself. Not funny, but...
She talked nonstop, so fast that the officers had to switch out of the room just to catch a breath. One detective mentioned that she would suddenly burst into sobs, but the moment the door shut and someone left, she would instantly stop, as if nothing had happened. This is clearly visible in the footage.
I'll be with you in just a second. You're fine.
He said he never saw a tear, just someone mimicking crying. Another strange detail that raised suspicion was the first person Shayna called. It wasn't 911 as they initially thought, but she actually called her mom. 15 minutes later, she finally called 911. The only sign of a disturbance in Ryan's apartment was by the table where he had been shot. Shayna claimed he threw her into a bookshelf, yet the bookshelf remained perfectly arranged, with everything in place. If someone had been thrown into it, items would have surely fallen over. Shayna couldn't stick to her story for more than a few minutes. During the 911 call, she said Ryan was holding the gun and she had to wrestle it away from him, but later claimed she grabbed the gun off the table. With each version of the story, the gun and the two of them moved locations. The police simply didn't believe any of her accounts. Her actions when they were out of the room seemed even more damning than her words. "Thank you," they said. Although she tried to frame the situation as self-defense, the way she talked about it didn't align with that. She allowed officers to take photos of her body to show them the marks Ryan supposedly left during the fight. However, only a few light bruises and marks were found, and the detectives weren't convinced they proved anything. Some of the marks looked old and could have come from anything. Given that she described a violent physical altercation, they had expected far more severe injuries. She claimed that at one point, Ryan locked himself in his bedroom, but if there had really been such a violent altercation, the police asked, why didn't Shayna use that opportunity to escape? Instead, she made Google searches for how to unlock doors and how to pick a lock with a bobby pin. She managed to get into his bedroom, and it was then that Ryan moved back to the table. It seemed he was trying to hide from her. After a lengthy 3-hour interview, there was nothing more the police needed to hear. She had said it all, and more.
Here's what's going to happen right now, Shayna. Okay, with everything that we have, I'm gonna have to charge you with murder.
What degree?
Murder. There's no degree.
They charged 21-year-old Shayna Hubers with murder, and she was held on a $1.5 million bond. They became even more confident when the autopsy revealed she had shot him a total of 6 times. But the first shot was to the right side of his head with a downward trajectory, enough to bring him to the floor. The following 5 shots were sheer overkill. The first shot wasn't fired at him as he stood, but from the side while he was sitting down. All the autopsy revealed was a blind rage attack. It was close, personal, and angry, and it did not seem to indicate self-defense. As the police were building their case against Shayna, Ryan's family was also consumed with the grim tasks of funerals and finances. After the police collected all the evidence from his apartment, Ryan's father, Jay, went over. The blood was still splattered on the walls, on the floor. Jay said he simply lay down next to it and screamed. "I screamed at God and screamed at everything," he said. He went back every day after that, until one day he decided he had to scrub the blood away. "I just felt this need to take care of my son, like I had for years. I didn't feel it was right for anyone else to do it except me. I didn't want some stranger coming in there and seeing what happened to my child. I wanted it to go away," he said. People in Ryan's life said the narrative of him being abusive and aggressive was far from the truth. Ryan's best friend, Ali, said that the first time she met Shayna, she immediately knew she wasn't the right girl for him. Shayna made it clear that Ryan was hers, and he had no room for friends, especially female friends. She stuck to him all night in a way that honestly made people uncomfortable. Ryan's ex-girlfriend said that nothing Shayna claimed about their relationship rang true when compared to their own time with him. It was possible that this time was different, but it seemed so unlikely. Messages from Ryan's phone clearly painted a picture of Shayna. Ryan and Shayna had been on and off for 18 months, and despite their initial chemistry, their relationship quickly began to sour. Ryan had other challenges besides his already demanding job and relationship. He was in trouble with his former business partner, who had filed a lawsuit against him after he left to start his own law practice. Shayna didn't seem to understand that Ryan had to divide his time between many things, including her. She would call him repeatedly, once sending him 75 texts in just 1 hour. The total number of messages she sent was in the hundreds of thousands. The police said that for every one reply Ryan gave, she would send about 50 messages back, bombarding him until he responded again. But when Ryan would tell her he needed space, Shayna would just get in her car and drive to his condo, crying and begging him to take back what he had said. She was completely obsessed with him and could not, and would not, accept that he wanted to walk away. After a turbulent spring, Ryan, despite everyone's pleas, still hoped that summer might be different and decided to give things another shot. But it was never meant to be. He told everyone he had decided to end things for good. But Shayna did what she always did, drove all the way out to see him. Ryan texted Shayna saying he was putting an extra padlock on the door and turning his phone off. She responded with over 100 messages before showing up with a spare key and letting herself in. Ryan messaged his best friend Ollie on Facebook, saying, "Literally, probably the craziest fucking person I have ever met. She almost scares me." He also texted another friend, saying, "This is getting to be restraining order level crazy. Some may wonder why he didn't file for a restraining order, but under Kentucky law, he didn't qualify. The law requires people to have lived together or been married for one to file a restraining order against the other. Anything outside of that is not recognized." At 12 a.m., Ryan knocked on his dad's door with an overnight bag and his laptop. He said he needed a place to stay to get away from her. She was still there, and he didn't know what to do. His dad said he could stay, but he had to do something about this. As Jay shut his son's door, he heard his phone buzzing with texts and calls coming in from Shayna. In the morning, Jay went into Ryan's room. He felt his son's depression and stress. Ryan was lying face down, his head in the pillow. Jay gave him a hug and said, "I love you." Ryan mumbled back, "I love you too, Dad." Jay was definitely concerned, but he knew that as a parent, sometimes you have to give your children space to be grown up. Ryan went back to his now empty condo, and the cycle began again. One of Ryan's neighbors, who had become close to Shayna, mentioned that Shayna had shown her bruises, supposedly from Ryan. However, despite this, she was still seen cooking and cleaning for him, buying him gifts and doubting him. Friends from as far back as high school said this wasn't the full picture. Shayna had a peculiar way of handling rejection and jealousy, one that was always intense. She couldn't stand not getting her way and would keep pushing until she did. Emotions, whether positive or negative, overtook her, and she'd force her way back into Ryan's life, invading his space to do things for him instead of respecting the distance he had asked for. Deep down, Shayna knew Ryan was still talking to her out of guilt. She even texted a friend saying, "He says he's only with me because I make him feel awful when I cry." Some, including Shayna's mother, said Ryan was guilty of sending mixed signals. Every time he broke up with her, he'd take her back. But others who knew Shayna said she was impossible to convince otherwise. It wasn't over until she declared it was. Ryan didn't want to upset her, but her behavior was even more difficult to handle. He felt trapped in a lose-lose situation. Shayna craved constant attention and validation, yet she wasn't as devoted to him as she claimed. She even admitted they were seeing other people, texting a friend that she had been with someone named Patrick and had caught an STD but couldn't pinpoint who gave it to her. There were whispers about Shayna fantasizing about killing Ryan. At a shooting range, she allegedly sent a text to a friend, saying she wanted to turn around, shoot him, and make it look like an accident. As the days surrounding his death unfolded, things turned messy again. On October 11th, just a day before Ryan's death, Ryan and Shayna spent the evening together at his condo watching a political debate. The following morning, at around 3 a.m., Shayna called her mom, crying about an argument with Ryan, claiming she had chest pains. Unknown to Ryan, Shayna's mom drove over and let herself into his condo to sit with her. Ryan awoke to find them both in his living room, completely freaked out. It was now October 12th, the final hours before Ryan's death. Shayna was once again bombarding him with messages. She told him she was angry that he hadn't taken her to the doctor for her chest pains, but she was happy her mom had because they gave her medication for her blood pressure. However, there was no doctor and no medication. It was just another tactic for sympathy and guilt. Later that day, Ryan was at the office, preparing for a date with none other than Miss Ohio 2012, Audrey Bolte.
Audrey Bolte, Ohio.
He left work as usual, casually mentioning to his colleagues that he was meeting her for drinks and a game of pool later that evening. He was genuinely excited. One colleague made a concerned face, hinting at the tension with Shayna. She even suggested Ryan should call a locksmith and alert the police, but Ryan had no intention of telling Shayna about his plans. Strangely, while Shayna never mentioned Audrey's name in her interviews, Her Google history told a different story. She had searched for Audrey and downloaded a picture of her just hours before Ryan's death. The final moments in that Highland Heights condo remain a mystery. Many speculate that when Ryan told Shayna it was over and asked her to leave, he may have mentioned his upcoming date with Audrey, someone he was just minutes away from meeting. This could have been the trigger. For Shayna, if she couldn't have him, no one else would. That simple, haunting thought might have been the motive for everything that followed. Shayna maintained her innocence as her trial began. While there was no dispute over who fired the shot, her defense claimed she acted in self-defense against a violent man. Meanwhile, the prosecution pushed for a murder conviction.
The conviction.
Jurors in Shayna Hubers' trial learned more about the night Ryan Poston was shot, and testimony took some unusual twists and turns today.
An expert testimony witness, a forensic expert from New Jersey, was called, spent a long time going through all the evidence, and when he was called to the stand, although he didn't use this word, he basically said that she, Shayna Hubers, was the aggressor.
The victim was alive for all of the shots. So I believe the first 3 shots in and of themselves were very damaging, but he remained alive until the last shot was given.
Then from the science, they moved to a lot of the emotion. Ryan's stepfather testified.
He said to me, he goes, my biggest issue, Dad, is I don't know what, if I'm going to be able to do this, to go on that date, because Shayna is always around. And I don't know what to do. He said, I don't know what to do and to get her to leave.
Shayna had told many stories about that night to many people, but the defense latched on to one of her stories, which was that she had shot him as he was standing up from the table to come towards her, and she saw him as a threat.
This was not a case of anything but self-defense. This was a case where Shayna was acting to save her own dignity and her own safety.
Shayna claimed she fired the remaining 5 shots because she saw Ryan still moving on the floor and feared for her life. However, the prosecution's expert exposed a fatal flaw in her story. The first bullet's trajectory, entering from the right side of his head at a downward angle, proved Ryan had to have been seated, not standing or walking toward her. Shayna couldn't have been across the table as she claimed. She had to have been beside him, standing over him as his head fell forward. The second bullet entered his back as he collapsed, and the blood splatter on the gun indicated just how close she was. By her own admission, releasing the safety trigger showed clear premeditation, ruling out panic or self-defense. This wasn't a frantic act of protection. It was calculated, revealing a chilling intent to kill. As the trial unfolded, many couldn't help but draw parallels to another notorious case: the murder of Travis Alexander by his ex-girlfriend, Jodi Arias, in 2013, a case that continues to haunt the public's mind.
The entire afternoon was devoted to one single defense expert witness whose specialty is toxicology. Now, Saeed Jortani testified that Ryan Poston had a combination of Xanax and Adderall in his system at the time that he died. Both are doctor-prescribed medications that by themselves provide exactly what the patient needs. However, Jortani added there can be problems when the 2 drugs combine in the body.
What is really interesting about this drug is that it's given to people to cause, basically decrease their panic situation, or it's called what we call anxiolytic. That means it decreases anxiety. That's what it's made for. But in certain individuals, what it could cause is the opposite. It could cause emotional outbursts, it would cause basically discontrol and violence and so on.
Well, a couple of cellmates were called, and one after the other, they both said, look, that self-defense thing, that's just bogus. She made that up. That's just absolutely not true, that she admitted shooting him without provocation.
Shayna's defense team combed through every message Ryan had ever sent, searching for signs of anger to paint her as the victim. One message stood out. Ryan, frustrated over a lawsuit from his former business partner, wrote, "I just want to scorch the fucking earth and leave this city in a pile of rubble." The defense pointed to this as evidence of his volatility, but the prosecution countered. It was hyperbole, born from frustration over a situation beyond his control, and it didn't suggest anything about the events of October 12th. More importantly, None of these messages were directed at Shayna. The only messages concerning her were ones where Ryan expressed fear about what she might do to him.
Look of a woman awaiting her fate. Shayna Hubers now waits for the jury's verdict. Good evening. The jury's been at it for about 4 hours now.
And this will not be an easy task. There are 5 possible options that they're debating. They include reckless homicide, manslaughter in either the first and second degree, and murder. And, of course, they could find her not guilty.
How do you know who to believe?
She's shown us that she's a manipulator. She has shown us that she will say anything she can to get what she wants, and most importantly, what she showed us on October 12th, 2012 is that she's a murderer.
Bang, bang, pause, bleeding. Bang, 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 and down he went to the floor, and they heard it. And that's truth, and that's real, and that's what happened.
There is no way that from the ground that shot occurred. It's just not physically possible.
If he would have gotten the gun, it would have been me and not him. We know that because she repeated it over and over again in the police station.
Her true character showed when she thought no one was watching.
I did. Yeah, I did. I believe.
Ultimately, the jury did not believe her claims of self-defense either.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Shayna Hubers, guilty of murder.
And after just 5 hours of deliberations, Shayna Hubers was found guilty of the murder of Ryan Poston. Shayna, someone once so talkative, now had little to say aside from,
"And I'm sorry to my family and I'm sorry to my friends for letting them down. I am sorry for the money that my parents have had to spend on attorneys. I feel like I was led on. I feel like I was manipulated, used, and abused."
Hubers makes one last plea to the judge.
It was never about Ryan's family. It was never about them. I don't mean to hurt anyone else. I never meant to hurt anyone else.
This case comes down to one phrase.
Just once to hear the words, "I shouldn't have done that."
But I listened to everything that was said in here. I never heard a word or a look that said, "I'm sorry," to these people back here. What I think happened in that apartment was little more than cold-blooded murder. It's probably as cold-blooded an act as I've been associated with in the criminal justice system in the 30-plus years I've been in it.
She didn't.
Not once did Shayna mention Ryan's name. Lauren, his ex-girlfriend, stood with his family, seething at how little Shayna seemed to care. It was all a show from the very beginning. Shayna's mother, ever the defender, continued to insist that there was no way her daughter could be capable of murder, clinging to a belief that seemed almost delusional.
Hubers did not testify in the trial, although she did speak during an unsuccessful attempt to qualify for early parole eligibility.
Were you with 10 other men during this whole time that we're talking about? 2012, 10 different men.
How are you saying was I with them? Like, are you saying was I friends with them? Did I sleep with them?
You slept with 10 different men during 2012.
In answer to your question, sure, I may have slept with 10 guys in 2012, but I don't see how that's relevant to any of this.
Well, luckily that's not up to you.
Listen, keep a civil tongue in your head, number one, and just answer the questions.
You do not take rejection well.
Dr. Connor did say that I don't take rejection.
You were rejected. Whether it had been earlier in the day when Ryan told you, "I don't want to see you," whether it was the other times where he said, "We're done, this is it, no more, I need space," you were rejected by him not just once, but many times.
If I killed Ryan over rejection, he would have been dead almost 2 years prior.
I asked you if you were rejected by him.
Sure, I've been rejected. I've been rejected.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
But if that were motive, there'd be a graveyard full of men.
With that, Judge Fred Stein agrees with the jury. Shayna Hubers goes to prison. She'll be there up to 40 years until she's in her 60s.
Shayna Hubers was later sentenced to 40 years in prison, with parole eligibility after 20 years. But in 2016, more shock was to come.
First at 7, will there be a retrial in one of the tri-state's highest profile murder cases? That is the question tonight.
In 2016, the guilty verdict was set aside.
Turned out one of the jurors had an undisclosed felony record.
Shayna's conviction was unexpectedly overturned when a shocking revelation surfaced. One of the jurors was a convicted felon. According to Kentucky law, felons are prohibited from serving on juries. The juror claimed he had fallen behind on child support payments over 2 decades ago, and although he had pleaded guilty in 1992, he was unaware that this made him a felon. The discovery turned the case on its head, leaving many to wonder just how deep the cracks in the justice system went.
Poston's father, Jay, says he and his family are ready.
Life isn't fair, and this is ugly, but we will do what we have to do.
Campbell County Commonwealth Attorney Michelle Snodgrass argued the error is not relevant to the guilty verdict.
I think Mr. Craig is a very decent, honorable, honest man. I think he's a man that tried to do his best to serve his community. I think that he honestly, in his heart and his mind, believes that he did not commit a felony.
Following this, a new trial was planned for 2018. While waiting in custody, Shayna wed Richard McBee Jr., a 42-year-old ex-inmate she met while incarcerated. At the time, McBee, who was transitioning and went by the name Unique Taylor, expressed a chilling sentiment. "If I had to create the perfect girl to spend the rest of my life with, I would create Shayna Hubers."
Since her sentencing and subsequent turnover of her conviction, we've not heard a word from Shayna Hubers. That is, until now. It was the summer of 2016, and apparently love was in the air inside the Campbell County Detention Center.
I originally met McBee 2 years ago when I was taken to a recreation yard that was next to Unique Cell. And we just began talking, and that was how it happened.
Some may say that this is more by reaching out, this is more of either a publicity stunt or something to derail your second trial. What would you say to somebody that says that?
This is no stunt. I don't see Unique as a man or a woman. I see Unique as a soul that I love.
Shayna even draws a comparison between her relationship with Ryan Poston and her new love interest.
Maybe years ago, that wasn't the right person, and so we didn't understand each other as well, and Unique and I understand each other a lot better.
Calling me from the detention center, Unique defends their request to marry.
I stand up for my rights, and obviously I'll be standing up for hers too.
I'm not hoping that anyone thinks any differently of me. I'm just hoping that this ensures my right to marry under the U.S. Constitution. That's all I'm here for.
Shayna also had a new lawyer, and his line of attack was focusing on extreme, alleged emotional disturbance she had suffered from Ryan's alleged physical and emotional abuse and past childhood trauma. Unlike her first trial, this time she testified in her own defense.
I recall Ryan standing over me and grabbing the gun that was sitting on the table and pointing it at me and saying, "I could just kill you right now and get away with it. Nobody would even know."
You saw your video?
Yes.
Your statement to the police, and you recall saying to them, it was probably that you shot him 6 or 7 times?
Yes.
Okay, so you knew it then. You just
I wasn't
forgot.
sure that it was 6 times or 7 times. I said probably, ma'am.
Good guess? Good guess on your part?
Shayna confessed that the relationship was far from perfect, revealing infidelities on both sides and providing intimate details about their life together. She admitted to feeling discontent with many aspects, but claimed that she always returned, despite his troubling behavior. "He wanted me to be his secret girlfriend," she explained. "He also told me to talk 25% less, saying I spoke too much." Shayna claimed at one point they even agreed to bring another woman into the relationship on the condition that Ryan put 10 photos of her back on his Facebook profile, a Facebook profile she would log into frequently to block other women so they can see it.
Years old, I don't need to bring a teddy bear up with me. This teddy bear was made by Jay's sister. This is Ryan's shirt.
I'm unavailable right now. If you could leave a message, I will call you back as soon as possible. Thank you.
That's it. That's all we have on voicemail.
A psychologist for the defense testified that while an insanity plea wasn't feasible, he believed Shayna suffered from borderline personality disorder, narcissism, PTSD, and signs of secondary sexual abuse trauma and sexual dysfunction. He claimed that at the time of the shooting, her psychological state was deeply impaired. Shayna also revealed that she had been molested as a child, even accusing her father of inappropriate behavior towards her. Yet again, the courtroom fell silent as the jury began deliberating, with tension hanging thick in the air.
Now on 11 at 11, guilty again. The retrial for Shayna Hubers ends with the same verdict from her first trial.
Shayna Hubers cried and buried her head in the arms of one of her attorneys.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Shayna Hubers, guilty of murder.
After being found guilty once more, Shayna's defense lawyer pleaded for a 20-year sentence, claiming that with rehabilitation, she could eventually rejoin society. On October 18, 2018, Shayna was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 20 years. Having already served 6 years, her first parole hearing would take place in 2032. Ryan's father, Jay, confronted Shayna's family, his voice heavy with pain. "Your daughter sits there, breathing, laughing, and speaking. One day, she might even join you for Thanksgiving. Meanwhile, I lie awake each night, tormented by the fear of forgetting my son's voice. For 3 years, seeking justice for him has been my only purpose. Now I must face the next chapter."
Ryan believed in the justice system, always, always, and it has not failed him.
Brian had always placed his trust in the justice system, and it hadn't failed him until now. Despite her second conviction, Shayna still insists on her innocence, denying she committed murder. She even announced her intentions to seek a third trial. Meanwhile, her marriage behind bars came to an end in January 2019, and Shayna set her sights on finding someone new through a prison pen pal website. "I've grown so much since the 21-year-old girl arrested in October 2012, she claimed. "I'm looking for someone who won't judge me by my past, but by who I am now. No one can truly understand what I've been through except for me. It's hard living under the shadow of false convictions, shaped by media ratings and a courtroom verdict. While some still believe Shayna acted in self-defense, others think she's exactly where she belongs, locked away, unable to hurt anyone ever again. In the eyes of the public, she remains a deeply divided figure. For everyone who knew Ryan, the relief of Shayna's conviction was hard to fully grasp. Yes, she had been found guilty twice, but the thought of her one day walking free so soon seemed unfathomable. Ryan's father, Jay, now keeps his son's dog, Oliver, by his side at all times, convinced that a piece of his son still lives through him. When asked how he could ever recover from such a loss, Jay's voice trembled. "There's no way. It's like searching for him. Knowing he's in danger and not being able to help is a nightmare. I wake in the dark, heart pounding as though it might burst, tears flooding down my face." He paused, the weight of it all heavy in his words. "Since Ryan was born, I've measured my life by his. My plan was always simple. I'd grow old, be a proud grandfather, and my son would carry on my name, my legacy. He was the last of me,